Well, hello again. Here we are. After a bit longer break than officially announced before, but I thought that as the sub-sessions actually took a little bit longer, it would be nice to give you a couple of more minutes to prepare yourself or to take a bio break, whatever. But I'm glad you're all back. We had actually the opportunity, I had the opportunity to be in each of the sub-sessions, and I must be honest, it was really engaging, the discussions, and also really very valuable presentations, what I could learn in those switches between the three sessions. In the same time, also, there were a couple of people encountering problems with audio or other small details. Luckily, it was a very minority, very small minority. Nevertheless, as we are as a society in a steep learning curve in digitization, and we can only wish that circularity will have a similar learning curve in the coming months. And who knows? It might be also one of the benefits of COVID that we have. Let's say, a feeling of transitions that they can be significant. So, or to quote it like Evelyn just told to me, never waste, if you're talking about waste, never waste a good crisis. So let's do that also in favor of circularity. We're at the end of the afternoon now, actually, to end this seminar of today, and in a way also to end REPAiR content-wise, but also to look beyond that. And that will be also the main topic of the panel, and also a couple of questions related to it. I got questions from the audience about 5 at the moment I would like to bring up, if I have time enough, but also 3 from each sub-session, from each parallel session I have a question, and perhaps there might be coming up any new very important questions to share with us. You can still use the chat box and it will appear in the iPad, and I also will have a couple of other questions related to it. But before we do so, I would like to introduce the panel of today. And in random order, that is, I would like to invite, let's say, to say hello to Tom Klaas. Tom, welcome. Tom actually had difficulties in one of the parallel sessions, but here you were the first to join almost, so that was successful, luckily. And so did you actually also in the end in the sub-session I saw. Tom is Manager Strategy and Development and Waste Flow Management of IVAGO, and that's an international intercommunal association responsible for the waste management of the Ghent urban area and the Destelbergen, so that's the larger Ghent area. Then we have Jörg Knieling. Jörg, perhaps you can show, Jörg, welcome as well, Professor of Urban Planning and Regional Development at Hafen City University, HCU in Hamburg. We have Michelangelo Russo. Hi, Michelangelo, welcome as well.
Hi.
Full Professor of Urban Planning and also Dean of the Department of Architecture at the University of Naples, Federico II. We have Sabine Schube. Hello, Sabine, Department for European Affairs for the Senate, Chancellery of the Free and Hanseatic City of Hamburg. Welcome as well. Then we have Rusne Silerte. Hi, Rusne. PhD researcher in my chair, actually, in the chair of Environmental Technology and Design at Delft University of Technology. And most importantly, also the founder of a spin-off called GeoFluxes, which is a spin-off of REPAiR together with the Cinderella project. So interesting to share that with you. And we have Aldo Vargas. Hi, Aldo. As a keynote also before in the morning session with us, and also very welcome to join. And here on the table we have Evelyn Jonkhoff from the City of Amsterdam, and we have Alex Wandel, Scientific Coordinator of REPAiR. And we miss actually still one delegate, and we hope he will join soon. It's Istvan Pomassi from Hungary, and we are doing all we can already for some time, I can say, to get him aligned, but I think we have enough panelists. So let's bring it on. Welcome, everybody. Often I will ask actually questions to you all. But I would like also to spread, of course, the let's say the load of answering. But the first question which came from the audience was actually by Henry Farga, also jointly with another question sent by Montserrat Pantoja Navarro. And they sent both to all. How can we make all these strategies, all these projects integrate with local participants from a micro scale of society? It is how to involve the common citizen and who is not thinking about sustainability or circular economy. I mean, we are, you could to some extent call us in crowd. We are all at the same frequency. We might be called intentional. And there's a large group of, let's say, citizens who are either unaware of the significance of the challenge or unwilling. And how should we address them besides of the examples we have shown ourselves in our projects? May I ask, so who would like to refer on that? Yes, please, Aldo.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Yes, please.
Yes, perfect. So I must say that this is a very, very common question, which I've heard many times during and after many projects financed either by national or European funds. And it's always a big struggle because in every project I've participated in many framework and horizon projects. So there is this knowledge we have. We know something and how to spread it further. So I must say that one of the few situations where I've seen that it really worked is when you have the local stakeholders already involved in the process of developing a project. When you have stakeholders, meaning the local society, I mean the local the inhabitants, the decision makers, the general public sector and the private sector, depending on the topics of the project, of the specific project, if you have them involved in the process from the beginning, then you can count on the possibility of really putting in action, implementing the solutions of any project you are working on.
Yeah.
I just give a hint that in REPAiR, that's precisely what we do. We start by setting a group of stakeholders that are very well, we have a whole process of selecting the stakeholders, and later on this results into a very effective way of communicating from all the levels, all the participants of the process. That's my experience.
Yeah, I can only confirm. Of course, the question often is related to how we can get all citizens, so not the ones who are willing to, which is the famous ladder of Arnstein, that you would like to take the highest step in the ladder of participation. Jörg Nieling, you had also requested to answer, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to the panel, and I would like to add some aspects to Aldo's answer, because I also think it's a great question and really inspiring, because if you look at circular economy and at the also instruments we have developed, it shows that it's easy to go in sort, I would like to say, a sort of technical engineering way. There's a lot of things we directly have in mind how to approach those, and we have really elaborated very interesting results. But the question how to get this into the landscape of the city, and that is the citizenship, is really a question. From our experience, I would like to mention related to the governance aspects. For example, it would be an interesting approach to have a closer look at people and initiatives that can be called the transition pioneers. So those people, like I remember, Evelyn, when we were in Amsterdam and you showed us those great examples, those pioneering examples coming from people who have developed this, like this restaurant project for reuse of food, for example. these are aspects that really come from the citizenship in a way, because people are very close to those processes. And I think it's worth to combine this more expert-oriented approach of engineering and knowledge-based aspects with those citizen-related pioneering aspects. And those pioneers are quite often not in the first few of the decision makers. They see them sometimes as a bit of nerving or extravagant people. But to include those into the processes of circular city development, I think, is really worthwhile.
Yeah, I would agree. Before I get to Tom, because Tom, you asked also the floor. Evelyn, can you confirm this this view by Jörg?
Yes, of course, and I see this happening throughout the city, and that's also the reason that we have called a new climate platform, where everybody can just map his or her initiative online to share and to inspire others. And to add, I explained this morning about donut economics and the outer ring and the inner ring. And what we did last autumn was so-called donut workshops in every city district, where we say, okay, these are the themes within the donut. And you have the floor and you make the agenda. So the citizens within the city district made the agenda and speak about safety, about health, about mobility, about all those different aspects. And then you share the same language, and that's what it's all about.
So could you also say that it comes down to, let's say, bringing it back to the neighborhood of the people, so at lower scales of, let's say, their own lives? Is that a way of making it happen?
Absolutely. And it isn't that important to call it circularity or sustainability. It's about what affects your daily life. And that's all the issues that are embraced within the donut economics and in the Sustainable Development Goals.
It bridges the here and now and there and later. That's,
absolutely.
Okay. Tom, you also wanted to, let's say, to answer this question or to reflect on it. Please.
I think we as an intercommunal are really close with our solutions, with our citizens. And what we see, the challenge is to have a behavioral change, because that's what we want to achieve. And I think, first of all, you have to start from a user-centered approach, not think top-down, but think about their life, their lifestyle, especially in an urban area where you have different types of areas, different types of groups of people. So you have to start user-centered. And two, persistence. What we see is that it's not enough to just implement something new, such as underground containers. What you need to do afterwards is a lot of follow-up, looking at the data and going back to the people, to the ones who are using it, and especially to those who don't use it, and go into a dialogue. So I think the main key aspect is effort. You have to keep on putting effort in it.
Yeah. So and probably, as you say, it's a continuous effort. So and can you give an example besides of this underground containers of Ivago, where you really say this made a difference in how we approached it?
I think one other example is we have in Ghent, which we call the Ghent Festival, Ghent Feasts, where we have hundreds of thousands of people coming each year. And at a certain moment, we decided to switch to reusable cups. We were one of the first in Europe, and everybody thought we were crazy. And we just persisted. We started with one square, then we went to a second one, a third one. And in the end, all the other squares were asking to have reusable cups as well. Why? Because the bill for cleaning up the streets went down because of that. So even there, it's a matter of persistence, showing them the results and then continuing to show them the results.
Yeah, that's a good example. So actually, to refer it again back to the person's own experience. Michelangelo, may I ask you, because in the Italian context, we experienced in REPAiR that this involving of the, let's say, the wider stakeholders, that it was really something which really was appealing in even more than you could say than in the other countries. So there were additional pools organized. So more than the, let's say, this from a methodological approach within REPAiR meant sequence of peri-urban living labs, the pools. Can you reflect how this was in Neapolitan society? How come and how this was so uptaken as a success?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Arian. It has been very interesting to work with people in our peri-urban territory, but I would like to enlarge the reflection about the social interaction and participation to our specific disciplinary. I mean, I think in the disciplinary field of planning and urbanism, we must push towards a substantial transition, a sort of paradigm shift, was structural elements can be identified in the methodological and conceptual apparatus of REPAiR, of our research. I think that the basic notion of circular economy, its potential effects must be considered as sort of new material on the basis of a new idea of planning project and of sustainable city. And it allows us to have many effects. First of all, limiting land consumption, and this is very real in our territories. Second is mitigate the forms of a sort of destructive metabolism that produce pollution and the impoverishment of territories in their ecological components. For example, in our territory, we have the phenomena of illegal landfills, for example, of lands of fires, Terra dei Fuochi in the Campania region. And then it allows us to control the environmental impact of urbanization phenomena, meaning the pursue an ecological economy more attentive to environmental issues and to the continuity of social and cultural values of context. So this kind of sustainable urban planning, this kind of paradigm shift, I think, is based on a process-based approach to planning capable of integrate and orient collective behaviors. I think this approach can overturn a conventional way of dealing with planning, like in Italy, like in my country, in Naples and in Campania region. We have to go towards a sort of new deal of bottom-up urbanism. And I think that tools prepared within our research, within REPAiR, are formidable support to this urban planning model. They represent a sort of cognitive infrastructure for the decision-making process. GDSC is a digital support for construction of visions. The importance of the practice of visioning that could be intended as a sort of exercise of desirable scenarios building. An infrastructure intended as a device for building eco-innovative strategies, as a construct of urban solutions capable of aggregating subject, resources, projects. And I think the space is the center, and the shape of the space, the identity of the space, because the space is a sort of great mediator that brings together expert knowledge and common knowledge to constituting the functional device for this kind of paradigm shift. As Michele Campagna said before, people in this way play the same game. It's very important, and it has been very important for designing the innovation of eco-innovative solution in our region.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is a very valuable, indeed, perspective, and indeed, space is crucial in this as well. And it also, before you were mentioning that, let's say, the access and the problem of these territories with these territories of fire, so the wasted landscapes, and it relates a bit to a second question which came out from the audience, which is by Chiara Mazzarella. You might know, actually, I suppose, which says actually, and it's related to equity. So from the cases, how can the CE promote a more equitable distribution of resources? So is a sustainable and flourishing society based on circular economy possible without limit on growth? Because this is always put as a kind of as a dilemma. Of course, circular economy has it's not for nothing that it is framed as circular economy. It's not about just sustainability side of circularity, but it's also about, let's say, the opportunities, the business side, or let's say solutions related, which are enduring. And this equitable, let's say, aspect of that not only the people who can afford it can become circular, but that it actually is a very that there's a principle of equity applied to all, even the impoverished neighborhoods. Who would like to reflect on this aspect? Yes, Jörg, please.
Yeah, I think that's really a very crucial question also from the political point of view of the whole issue, actually, because if we cannot connect the ecological aspects of resource efficiency with the social aspects, it will certainly not have this impact. So from one hand, you have this discussion regarding resource efficiency. If you look, for example, at the energy field, the discussion is, can ways of more circular energy production also lead to cheaper, for example, housing, warming prices, or energy costs for tenants? Those connections are very worthwhile, and the question is, in all those fields we are tackling, in how far this can be connected. When I look at Naples, for example, Michelangelo had in his examples shown how the sort of land reuse is directly connected to social aspects. I think that's a very interesting example from this point of view. And also the examples from Amsterdam went into the right direction, into this direction actually. And we in Hamburg in the waste field do also have those examples where, for example, reuse, so circularity, is combined with social aspects. So that, for example, those reuse offers are principally directly for people with low income. So I think that's also important to show again, circularity is not only a technical or an engineering issue, it's really a political issue, a social issue.
Yeah. And Sabine, what do you think for Hamburg? Is this something which applies there as well? Hamburg has been a tremendous positive example of uptake of refugees, but also as a result has had challenges related, of course, to social, let's say, all sudden more social diversity. And does it also is something which is connected to circularity? How can you include, let's say, these kinds of groups with these kinds of, for them, probably very new topics and perhaps not as important as, let's say, their survival? Let's put it like that.
Yes, thank you for giving me the floor, and hello to everybody from Hamburg. I think for the future of circular economy transition, it will be important to first to replicate good examples and scale them up, and to better integrate circular economy thinking into strategic and then into climate action plans, and we are still missing this kind of plan in Hamburg, and to better connect different activities and strategies. And as said before, we must start at the project design to go to the people. And we in another project, the Mikado project, we have together with the Hafen City University, we are trying to find ICT tools for the better integration of migrants. And I think circular economy is definitely one topic for them to come into touch with this kind of thinking. But we as city have to be very clear in what we want, and what we want them to do. So I think to go to the citizens is a major topic here, and to go to have this to special address this group of people with language barriers and from another culture is a major topic in this field.
It's a major challenge. Yeah.
Okay,
I agree, and I can, from my own practice, also say that in Amsterdam we have similar experiences in some neighborhoods in which you really needed to connect to another cultural, let's say, background, and if you do so, you can be successful, but it takes a lot of effort from the city perspective to let's say, not try to let's say, put forward your own kind of goals and way of finding solutions, but also to integrate it into everyday, let's say, backgrounds of their culture and sometimes religion, and that can be very, very helpful if you do that. If I may jump to Rusne. Rusne, you of course are related also to your PhD topic of the significance of an effect, also and how that makes if you make a decision in prioritization of a solution one over another. But you also are involved in your startup Geofluxes in making, let's say, access the information to not only professional stakeholders but also to anyone, I could say. Is that perhaps a connect to this need in these questions? Because there's quite a lot of questions come from the audience. How can we connect citizens? So how do we avoid that it just stays among us professionals and academics and the theory? And let's say, how can we make data, which is available, how can we really make it accessible to everybody who is interested and who would like to find or bring up a solution? Rusne?
Yes, hello. I think this is a very nice question indeed. How can we bring it to citizens? And I would maybe change this question whether we really need to bring it to citizens, so citizens as consumers, to people who actually need to make a decision of what they buy and how they recycle, where they dispose the waste, because we are putting a lot of emphasis on awareness of people, on consumers, on awareness of consumers. Although what we have seen, at least in Amsterdam, is that 89% of waste, so 89% of resources that go wasted, are not really wasted by consumers, are wasted by companies, and of course, influenced by the consumers somehow. So I would change this question whether how should we bring it to people, but not to people as what they are doing at home and what they are buying at home for their families, but to people when they are making some kind of professional decisions. So to somebody who is a lawyer and has to make a case whether to allow something whether to advise somebody how to buy some certain materials in a specific way, how to get some kind of certificates. Or somebody who is maybe an owner of a bigger factory and has to decide what kind of materials to use, what kind of processes to use. And for these type of people, the question is like, how can we bring all this data and knowledge to the people to use it in a professional life rather than at home trying to decide what kind of plastic bag to choose for their groceries, which is not where the problem lies.
That's an
and how
interesting
are we trying
point.
to do this? Well, of course, by using the data from the companies, the data that the government has, and not necessarily making it absolutely public, which would make it difficult legally, but maybe make it accessible to those who actually can act upon it by request, by just saying, okay, I need some kind of help on this. Who can help me? Maybe I can just go to the municipality and ask for some kind of advice. What kind of difference does it make if I make one decision or another? So that would be my answer.
That's an interesting perspective you bring up, because it also includes a bit of a dilemma. Eh? We emphasize the importance of citizens, and now you say, well, actually, the largest share is by far company-related waste. And if I may add to your quote, I think in Amsterdam it even is related to 7 companies alone, right? More or less.
Well,
only a couple.
Not necessarily companies, but 7% of that's what.
7%. Sorry, yeah, that's the one. But 7% of let's say, yeah. So, but I think what I would like to bring up to the other people in the panel is would that indeed make an approach towards these big, let's say, producers of resources? We call it waste, but I prefer to say resources. Does it make more sense for Ivago, Tom, for instance, to say, hey, we think it's important, citizens, but well, it's marginal, it's niche. Can I say it like that, or is it both ways?
I think if you talk in volumes, in tonnages, you should look at companies. Company waste is much more, and company material use is much more than that citizens do. Our focus is mostly on citizens. We do have around 4,000 companies that are customers, but mainly small companies, restaurants, etc. And we see with them already, it's not always that easy.
Yes.
It's not so easy to get them to have 3 bins instead of 1. Of course, what triggers them often is the price. That's something that can help. But for instance, organic waste in our company is almost as expensive as residual waste. So even there, we can't push them to do it separately. I'm glad that the European Union now has new legislation, but even then, we will see smaller companies just throwing it in residual bin. So it's difficult. But I also believe that the larger benefit is in the companies.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Okay. Yeah, okay, but that brings in this, it's not just, it's a dual approach, you could say. Jörg, you would like to refer on this as well?
Yeah, because I think maybe dealing with the topic of citizen might be sort of misunderstanding. I would say it's not the question if the amount of waste and reuse potential is the main issue when we speak about citizen. But it's the question if by integrating citizens and giving them a voice, we can push the political decision-making process in a direction where resource efficiency and different ways of using our resources become a much more important topics, so that there are restrictions or new framework conditions for enterprises. So it's not from my point of view that we look at the bin of the citizen. That's okay, but that doesn't bring a lot, to make it clear. It's more that we need to transport this vision of having a new sort of city perspective, which is much more resource efficient. And bring our political system to the point that they decide on this and make sort of framework conditions that the enterprises, which have a much higher impact, work in a different way. That would be my vision, actually, to, in a way, include the citizens in this whole process of becoming a circular city.
Yeah, I think that connects well to the donut approach, indeed, and let's say democracy in general. Aldo, you would like to add to this? You indicated.
Yes. In fact, it's more or less adding to what has been said until now. I think that, in fact, it's clear for me, and it becomes more clear in our discussion that this human social aspect is a very important layer of the whole process, in the sense that when we think in the categories of infrastructure, we have a specific way of looking at it, a very engineer one. When we look at it from the political side, I mean local political side, we see a different perspective. When we see from the perspective of the companies, we see a completely different perspective, which is much more upon, you know, the value of waste. So at some point, if the technological aspect becomes very effective, then companies would like to have more waste than before, because it's a resource, a valuable resource that we can imagine that. Whereas for the ecological part of it all, it would be the other way around. So we see that there are different layers or groups of interest in this whole process that we have to envision very well and understand very well their specific needs, requests, and possibilities, and put it into the circular economy picture. Until now, I'm following more or less what happens in circular economy all around. I've been participating also in the European Urban Agenda partnerships. I mean, not participating, but following what happens there. And we see that there's a lot of perspective from local governments, urban policies on waste management. But precisely this multi-level, multi-actor scene is still to be more understood, and we still need to see what could be the real role to play by the citizen, the local, the inhabitants of the cities, because in fact, how we as citizens behave will impact the rest of the aspects, yes? And in fact, I would even propose one exercise of imagination to see a step further. What would be the step further from circular economy as we understand it today? Yes. Yeah. Would it be a very effective mechanism of treating whatever quantity of waste, or would it be the reduction of waste and making the waste itself a smaller part of our reality and just transforming into a kind of more organic mechanism in the future? I mean, in the next step after what we are dealing now with. Yes,
it's a good point, because of course this seminar is called Beyond Repair, also from that perspective, and it also connects well to Michelangelo's statement about envisioning and about let's say trying to envision the positive and how it should be, how it could be, let's say, put forward from space and from opportunity for all, and in let's say in a scenario-based explorer. May I jump to Istvan, because we were in the end we managed to have you aligned in the panel, so welcome as well here, Istvan Pomaci. How is the Hungarian context in this context of importance?
I will try to answer to your question. That I think that the REPAiR so far achieved important results. So for us, for example, the most important, this is the GDSE, the Geodesign Decision Support Environment, which is really a very innovative tool for better underpinning bold decisions, and also can contribute to better integrate the environmental and spatial planning and the sustainable urban management as such. Another important lesson is, and you asked us, how can we transfer the knowledge to other cities or regions across Europe or beyond Europe? This is a very relevant question. There are different achievements which can be used. For example, I would like also refer to the assessment tool, the benchmarking tool, which is also very useful tool, but there can be further steps taken to improve it.
Yes.
For example, data availability and accessibility mentioned many times. So this is very important also for the further improvement of the assessment tool, that framework of the robust indicators, measurable and also comparable indicators should be developed. And I think that Amsterdam is on the right way to do that. This is not easy. But for example, the European Commission monitoring framework for circular economy with the Eurostat work can help further to bridge the data gap. Another important lesson is, and you asked, this is the social dimension and the equity issues, which can be also an important part of the overall sustainability framework, which is more or less now concentrating on waste management, recycling, etc., etc., etc. But according to my opinion, any great transformation or societal transition should involve a lot of people. Yeah. And no one left behind, this is a very important slogan coming from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but there will be also winners and losers in any transition, including the circular economy transition. And we should take into account how to manage, for example, different training and retraining programs. And this is especially true for the natural resources-based societies. I have just studied the circular economy policy of Canada, for example. There is almost nothing in European comparison in the way toward transition, because of the very huge mining and natural resources in industry.
Yeah.
And then some businesses certainly are hesitant to go further. This is also one barrier.
Yeah, and perhaps it's a nice bridge, because you said how can it be extrapolated to other urban areas, and now you brought up the Canadian example. We got a question also from our global audience actually, and this is a question from Elkin Vargas Lopez, and he I think it's a he. I'm not sure. Sorry for that, but he asks, is it possible to replicate this project in Latin America? And what would be the first step then? That's interesting also in this perspective. We are, of course, embedded in our European context. It's a European project. But of course, we are looking now beyond REPAiR. And well, I can be honest, as the project leader, we have been contacted as a group to extrapolate it to North American cities as well, but also to South American cities. So I can answer, but I would like to hear from all of you, what would be your indication? What would you think can obstruct this, or what should be done as a first step to enable this as was asked by Elkin Vargas Lopez? Who would like, yes, Aldo?
I just say for a very short one sentence, I think that there are European technical possibilities to do that, namely the International Urban Cooperation Program, for which diverse cities from Europe and, in this case, South America can apply. I have not the data, the exact data, I mean the calls, etc., in front of my eyes now, but just mention that International Urban Cooperation European program, that's a first step that could be done just to try to match cities here in Europe and in South America to do that. It functions also towards Africa, Asia, etc., etc. Just the technical part of it.
Yes, okay. And perhaps in addition to that, Alex Wandel wanted also to add a bit.
Yeah, I wanted to add this bit of the discussion we had also in the geodesign and peri-urban living lab session, because indeed, what we saw and we discussed is that the general approach of geodesign is rather open, is applied all across the globe. And what is so important from it is that the proposals, the design, the solutions, however you call it, emerge from the interaction, from the local, from the interaction with people at the place, and so on. I think that is something that is important to make sure that the solutions come from people. And that refers back to what Michelangelo said. It's about space and place, because our daily living environment and the quality of our daily living environment is so crucial to many of us, independent whether we are citizen, economist.
Yeah, but if I may add to that, I think it's also important to have the data, right? Let's be honest that we are, let's say, we are blessed in Europe that we have this obligation for companies when they create or transport or let's say elaborate on waste, that they have to make this report. It's a European law which makes that all this data was existing and in big data sets which were not used for other things than perhaps let's say restrictions of let's say dangerous waste. And what we try to do in REPAiR, of course, is to, let's say, to use this underused data for opportunities instead of let's say for securing health and guarantees of that it's not exported to other places with more vulnerable societies. Is there anyone of the panelists who would like to also answer this question? Yes, Tom, please, and Rustin afterwards. Yes.
I think on a very general base, you should look at the things that are universal, and I think there are a lot of them in the deliverables you made that are universal. Being a strategy model, an assessment framework, the the main aspects of it are universal. But I think then a step further, you have to look at what were the assumptions we made and which of those assumptions are local.
Yes.
And I think there I follow Alex, that you have to do that exercise with them together.
Yes.
That you let them counter the assumptions you made, and you will quickly see what is common and what is not.
Yeah. So here comes in the methodology, which is also in the handbook and in the Peri-Urban Living Lab approach. Okay, thank you, Tom. Roosne, you would like to reflect as well?
I was actually willing to say almost the same what Tom said. It's not, we actually proved a little bit of the opposite, then that data is really, really nice to have. But even in the regions where we didn't really have such a nice data as we had in Amsterdam, which was like extremely explicit, the project still worked and we still arrived to eco-innovative solutions. And then the Peri-Urban Living Lab still happened, which means that data was not really something that prevented this from continuing and from creating the solutions.
Yes.
So I think it's actually much easier to apply it to any other context without the data than it seems.
Good point. Yeah, thank you. Okay, then I would like to Jörg, and then I'll switch to the session, the sub-session questions, because there's a couple of interesting ones. Jörg, please.
Yeah, just a remark regarding also this aspect of having broader impact, or how to bring those interesting and inspiring results from REPAiR into a broader scope. From my point of view, it's really very important to consider how to include them in existing policies that are in the cities already on the stage, I would like to say. Like, for example, the climate plans that have been elaborated in many cities. We see this in Hamburg, for example. Here, circular economy has been included in the climate plan of the city, which is, from my point of view, interesting, because the climate issue in Hamburg has quite a big importance. And so we hope that this gives it a further drive, because circular economy on itself in the sort of political structure in a city is not so easy to include. It's who is in charge. We all know this. It's a governance issue. But trying to identify those different ways or approaches might be important. Climate plan is only one possibility. It could also be a structural policy approach, or a more environmental approach, depending, but this is important to identify and have a look at the different policy fields that might be attractive for circular economy, and to bring this in and our instruments to include them into those slots, I would like to say. Yeah, thank you. I had both Michelangelo and Istvan who would like to reflect, I heard. Michelangelo, would I?
Yes. I would like to underline how GDSC is not only a system to collect and work about data, but it's a tool that is based on a sort of collaborative process supported by the geodesign method, really integrated with the collective context of the living labs. We've seen it in the session before about pools, and it can represent a sort of interface that translates into an understandable language the technical content of the representation of the waste flows in different scenarios, and it can simulate the impacts of the space that these modifications involve. So I would like to underline the importance of this tool from a communicative point of view, and it can help us to push circular economy as a sort of innovative content of the planning practice of contemporary built environment. So I think it's very important, and we experimented this notion inside our groups of Living Lab in Naples. And then I would like to talk about the political nature that can support the strategic action plan. That is very important, but maybe I can talk about it later.
Okay, that's a very democratic statement, because Istvan is really willing to give his point of view as well. Istvan, please reflect on it.
Yes. I am here.
Yes, please. Yes, you wanted to refer to this as well. I think you are muted, or we don't.
I would like to join my voice to Professor Kneeling by mentioning the put together the low carbon economy strategies as planned together with the circular economy policies and strategies, because there are big differences in political perceptions. So the climate change is much more visible with the extreme, increasing extreme events and so on and so on, and politically much more attractive. This is not by accident that most of the European member states are developing very fast national, regional and city level low carbon economy plans. And this is not the case in circular economy. If we would like to really put forward a systemic shift, we should put together the decarbonization strategies and plans together with the circular economy plans. So it is very important to break finally the so-called silo approach of many governments, including many times in the European Union and European Commission and national governments. So there should be a holistic and integrated approach, at least in two very urgent and pressing challenges like the climate change and the wasteful societies. Professor Kneeling is totally right. Yes. I support this approach.
He gives a thumbs up, so he agrees. Thank you. But I would like to come back to Michelangelo. Michelangelo, because it also relates to the first session question which was posed here to me and to all of you, I would say. Because if you look at this co-design process, because you could frame it like that. So what is the role of negotiation for the activation and implementation of such a co-design process? Could you reflect on that? So the role.
Great. I think it's a very crucial method to plan a strategic action plan. I think it's very important. What can support this kind of planning action? I think that the specific support should be primarily not of nature of governance or technical or data related, but primarily of political nature. In our context, in our city, our metropolitan area, it is very clear, because public administrations are the reference subjects for orienting and implementing planning processes. So the construction of this kind of strategic action plan represents a social and urban construction of a vision change that is very important, because it represents the strategy on the basis of strong technical contents, of the wide availability of data and strong interconnection with subject of governance, but it allows the regulation and development of territory. And I would like to say that it allows also the design of territory, of the quality of the space, of the common space of the city. And the reference model is collaborative and interactive. So negotiation is on the base of this kind of planning model and involves different kind of subject into a practice of negotiation. Yes. Citizen, public administration, business, and I think also and mostly universities. If we want to take, for example, the model of quadruple helix as a constructive reference. As I said before, I think that the knowledges and the multidisciplinary knowledge, that outcomes of research and of investigation techniques, I mean, from university, is the essential infrastructure for producing values of cultural, economic, and social development. I think that this notion represents the real content of spatial planning. And I think that what we learned from REPAiR, I think that the project REPAiR has given us many signals of the urgency of this new approach to the main issues of territorial governance, as for example, the waste management, but in a very specific key. I mean, the key is the intersectoriality, the multidisciplinary approach and knowledge, because this is the key concept of a necessary approach based on the collaboration between subjects, authorities, without leaving out, of course, citizens. And I think this approach can produce innovation in different contexts. And I think that in this direction, also a sectoral topic as waste management can be treated through a multiple disciplinary approach that allow us to solve the problem and to extend the effects of this policy to the other intervention sectors. Our objective is to regenerate peri-urban territories. No? So in Naples, for example, the waste crisis of the first years 10 has determined a huge urban social crisis as a threat for the livability of the urban space. But in parallel, an intersectorial management of urban metabolism in a key of a circular economy can be considered as a tool that improves the livable space, regenerating peri-urban fringe of the metropolitan areas of European city, and we experimented that in our context.
Yes.
So, for example, wastegapes, this beloved neologism we created to couple the word waste with the suffix scape. It refers to landscape dimension that make reference to landscape neglected and abandoned. So the notion of wastegapes that we have conceived and carry on in our research, I think is a key concept to explore this necessary dialogue between knowledges. Apply the circular economy to the most delicate portion of territory, like for example, the landscape and its potentialities, means that we have to metabolize different disciplinary perspectives in an holistic approach to urban planning. For efficacy, urbanism towards suitable social and urban results, I think, projected in the future. And I think that the result could be a very good design for a livable public space. I think so.
Okay, thank you. I think this is almost an excellent final statement because we're running exactly out of time. But I would nevertheless bring up a final question which came out of the session too, because it has so much to do with the actuality of today, but also it has to do with what you just mentioned, Michelangelo, related to the socio-economic challenges. The question from session 2, there was the session by Martin, was in relation to the socio-economic challenges and inequalities exacerbated by the COVID-19. This is the actuality of today. How to include cost-benefit analysis of different policy interventions to exchange circular economy transitions. There are also winners and losers in any transition. So how to deal with this challenge? And I would love to first, I'm not sure, well, who would like to take the lead here? But I think there's a couple of municipal perspectives like Sabine perhaps who could reflect on this.
Oh, that's a hard question. I think it was pointed out several times today that circular economy is not always leading to more sustainability, and I think this has to be checked first. And I think what we need to come forward now is apart from collecting all these little initiatives and things we've done in the last years regarding with respect to circular economy, is to come to a more systemic and systematic approach. And I think this is what you mentioned is one point which has to be checked. So, and we have the overall plan from the Commission. We have the European Green Deal.
Yes.
We have the circular economy plan coming out of the Green Deal, and we are now There's coming a Circular Cities and Regions initiative from the Commission, and in these initiatives there will be a focus on the implementation of circular solutions at local and regional level, and what you've mentioned will definitely be on the agenda to check. And Hamburg is a member of the City Science Initiative and responsible for the subtopic circular economy, and we will bring our expertise from this from the workshops from the last month into the city CCRI, the Circular Cities and Regions initiatives, to move on forward on this topic. So I think that's it.
Okay, and perhaps this connects also to Amsterdam Southeast connection, but I would like to, because both Jörg and Tom also requested the floor. So Jörg, please, if you want to follow up on this statement by Sabine. Jörg, yes?
I think it was first Istefan who was before I put up my hand.
I didn't see the order, but it's fine. Istefan.
Okay, like. So now maybe I can start. I think COVID is quite not good framework, but it's a framework that shows us that we really have to keep this social issue in mind. And maybe it's important to really differentiate between the different resource streams. Like, for example, Michelangelo had mentioned the spatial dimension. And certainly, regarding space, it's a question of housing. So what does space, the use of space, and the housing costs, how are they related? That is, I think, a very important circularity in cities that has to be kept in mind and has to be brought together with social aspects. So affordable housing is a topic. So it's not only to reuse space and build any sort of houses, but it's mainly to use space for affordable housing and how to manage this in cities, how to bring the circle in this direction. And the same questions, I think, should arise for the other streams. So for waste, for energy, and other circularity topics, how can we connect those issues of resource efficiency with a positive perspective from the point of social equality?
Yes.
And this is now, because of COVID, it becomes very aware, because we have many people who are in the danger of becoming losers of the current development.
Precisely.
And what does this mean for circularity issues? That's I think it's very important.
Yeah. I think this was also indeed the background of this question particularly. Istvan, you would like to also refer?
Yes, Arjan. Actually, I have put forward to this question at the session too, but I know that it is very easy to put a good question, but the answer is another issue, so I try to do something with it. I was thinking about that the assessment tool within the REPAiR can be also complemented with the cost benefit. Because there should be cost, to be invested to go forward in developing green and blue infrastructure in cities, to put a lot of investment in the low carbon or carbon-free housing and infrastructure and so on and so on. And the bearing the cost, the sharing the cost is a key question.
Yes.
Who should bear the cost? The central government, vis-à-vis the local government or the ordinary people? We should collect more taxes for these purposes or not? What to do with the central budget, especially at the time of the COVID, when they are almost empty or the budget deficit is skyrocketing, especially in Hungary and also in UK and in many European countries. So these are all together very interesting questions. And the other aspects, if we will have benefits, but we should calculate also the benefits of going through the different stages toward the circular economy, from the ambition to the mainstream. Where to put the costs and who should put the costs, and what will be the benefits and the benefit sharing among the different layers of the society. Yes. Probably this could be also another research field to put together another interdisciplinary team with sociologists and psychologists and so on, and economists as well. And the other issue mentioned Professor Kneeling, the housing, for example. At the time of the COVID, a lot of people are trying to escape, for example, from Budapest to the countryside, to the Lake Balaton, to buy new houses and to escape the urban densities threatens because the COVID-19 is spreading in the big cities, yes. And then where there is the compact areas, and then the urban density is very high. And this will very much change probably the housing market, including the prices. In some cases, the prices are going down. Yeah. For example, in the city centers, and the countryside is going up. I don't know whether it will be a permanent process or we will go back to the future, to the normal life. Yes. This is still open, but COVID is doing a lot of things. It is disturbing the everyday life and many fields.
Yeah, it is changing our everyday life, and I have to take, because we're a bit over time now. But I agree, and I think what you brought in very nicely is that that tips upon like what was this whole setting of today about is looking beyond repair. That the COVID is now beyond repair in a way. We were taken over by COVID inside our running time, but it is taking over society, and it's taking over also all kinds of new existing values, but it's putting them more up front, like socio-economic challenges, segregation. Anyhow, also sustainability is also put forward very strongly by COVID. And like you said, just cost dimension. So, and this I would like to and Tom, I hope you don't mind that I have to really wrap up here, but I would like to give also the floor back to Evelyn and Alex here with me at the table. So looking beyond REPAiR, that would be the last question to let's say wrap up. Would that mean indeed we're not done, right? So I mean, REPAiR is done. Circularity is way to go. We saw the circularity gap. 9% of all global, I must say, materials only taken care of. There's a lot of challenges ahead: economic, sustainable related. A social perspective, and also, like Michelangelo very importantly said, the spatial, let's say, deprivation of space, which is so immensely valuable within the COVID context, even more. Could you, first Evelyn and then Alex, I would like to give you the last word, give your go. What is the most to be prioritized in this beyond REPAiR perspective? Where should we take our first steps?
Where to take the first steps? I would turn it the other way around. We only have just one way forward to overcome this pandemic, and also looking at the lessons learned by REPAiR and other strategies, is that the green and just recovery is so enormous crucial, and we have gained so much results out of REPAiR. And out of what we're doing in Amsterdam and other cities, is that we have the obligation to combine this. And we have the responsibility, the joint responsibility, to put that into practice. And to show that we can realize this together, this green and just recovery as the only and just way forward. And that's our huge responsibility. So beyond REPAiR, there are a lot of steps, and we have to do it together. And I'm the first one to join.
I would definitely be sure of that. And but also, could you state in a way, it's stated more often, frequently lately, that of course a crisis, never waste a crisis. Yes. You mentioned it before, that this might be an interesting moment to catch two birds at a time. So
this is really a tipping point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Alex, do you agree? What is beyond our? I mean, we have we've done an extremely effort as the whole consortium, I must say, with all people involved. But you had an important role here as well. And what is your go on? Let's say, what's up next, Alex?
What's up next? Yeah. Oh, there is a lot up next, and I think what I took as a key lesson from the process of REPAiR, and that is the process, and I think that is what comes next, is the collaborating, the working together across and between disciplines, including citizens, but also very, very much important that came up earlier, looking at the responsible actors and key actors in the linear economy.
Yes,
the linear
precisely.
economy is there because people profit from it. And the winners and losers of the linear economy are also clear.
So we need the business to get in.
So
right?
we need the business to get in, and we need to change also our economic system in a way. And perhaps COVID is indeed an amplifying glass to show us
game changer.
this more. A game changer.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and I would love to make a longer wrap up here, but I'm 13 minutes over time, and can only let's say that the journey is always it comes to an end, but in a way it never will end. Of course, it's the process itself. Circularity itself is also there's no such thing as a circular society. It's dynamic. It's a moving goal, so to say. So most probably it will be an ongoing path, and there's a lot to do within all these perspectives we have seen today. There's a lot more to explore, to discover. Also in the output of the projects here presented today, not only REPAiR, but also the other three projects represented. And I would really ask you all to look a bit beyond today. Have a look at the exhibit, which is really informative. Have a look at the sites, at the output, at the deliverables, but also build, let's say, upon all, let's say, set already, all achieved in this road towards circularity. Even if we can say it's only 9% globally, that it's already 9%. So we can also look at it from the other side. And I think there's a long way to go, but on the other hand, there's a lot of great methods and tools now developed and manuals on how to approach this and take up this open source material which is produced. And I think that will be a great base for a lot more to come in the near future, but actually in the near years already. And we have seen in the first keynote today how many also opportunities from Europe in funding are going to be at stake already from the very start of the next year on. So I think there's also a lot of opportunities for collaborations and new projects to expand even further beyond REPAiR, and also to get into this stage of implementation and realization. And well, perhaps let COVID-19 then be a game changer also in a positive way. So I would love to thank the panel for this for the contributions today. Also saying sorry that I could not in a balanced way give everybody the floor at all times, but I hope I've managed to do it a bit in a balance. Thank you very much for your perspectives and very valuable feedback. And I love to let's say, normally I would say we get over it, we discuss further over the drinks. Well, that's the only thing they have to still find within these platforms. They have now networking inside, but they still need to get the drinks and the festivities afterwards. We will find a way to do that, but there are several digital ways. But for now, I would like to thank you all, and also above all participants who were with us in this I must say, very nice day, full of information, full of engagement. And let this be the start of much more in the coming time. And thank you all. And I hope to see you all very soon in real life again. Thank you.